Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Creative Writing Podcast. My name is Megan, and I'm going to be leading you through a writing workshop today. So, you'll need a pen and paper, or the notes up on your phone, or maybe something like a Word document. This is very much a podcast about getting words down on the page, not just about writing advice. So, the aim is that you spend the next half an hour, 40 minutes experimenting with some creative writing, following some writing prompts, and just seeing what comes out of your own imagination. And from there, hopefully, you'll have something that you can take on to another hour of creative writing, and another hour, and another hour. And keep going like that, and to develop your own ability to write down ideas that you have come up with and that you love and enjoy. Sorry, my attention was slightly distracted then by a weird sound in my house. Let's jump straight into some writing. Um, Today's topic is all about meeting a new place, and I'll talk a bit about that in a moment. But we'll start off with 10 minutes warm up. The idea of the warm up is that you start writing, you keep writing, you don't worry about words, you don't worry about sentence construction, you don't worry about whether anything's good. You're never going to show this to anyone. You'll probably cross it out or throw it away. It doesn't matter. It's just for you to get a sense of momentum. Think about a place that you know well from your memory. We're going to go with a place that's very easy on your soul. We all have places that mean a lot to us, but perhaps this is something slightly less uh, meaningful, and certainly not somewhere that's associated with anything horrible or any bad ideas. It could just be a local shop you used to visit when you lived in a different town than this one, or an old house you used to live in that doesn't hold any memories for you. And we're going to try and describe that place from memory. Um, so, the simplest of all writing exercises, really. Think of a place that you have been to, conjure it onto the page, describe it from your memory. What did it look like? What did it smell like? What did it feel like to be in that space? And I'll be back in about 4 minutes. And if you started to lose a bit of energy or focus, then you can take this prompt to add to your writing. But if you're steaming along at a fair old pace, then obviously you can ignore me. But the next prompt is just for you to have a think about verticals, everything vertical in this space, its edges and boundaries, and what prevents you from just seeing off into the distance forever and ever. So it might be walls and all the things we prop against them, and all the furniture we push to the edges of the room. Or it might be trees, or it might be buildings, or it might be mountains, but everything vertical that's creating a boundary for you. And now we'll begin to bring our warm up to a close or find somewhere intentional to stop. That could be the end of a description. Perhaps some dialogue or conversation had crept into your warm up. Perhaps even just writing about this place has given you a fantastic idea, and you quickly want to scribble down some of those words that will serve to remind you of this amazing idea when you come back to this page in your notebook. We quite often find, or I do anyway, that your brain works quite a lot faster than your hand. So once you kind of warm up and get your creative juices flowing, you can sometimes have a tumble of ideas which are very difficult to get down in like their fully shaped form. You might need hours and hours to get what's in your head down on the page. And I think that just monitoring those and taking little notes about them is a really good practice, because it means that when you do have spare time, you're never building from a blank page, or you rarely are. You're always coming back to a notebook that's asking you to continue a train of thought that you found exciting that comes from your own imagination. So we'll bring our warm up to a close there. And we're just going to have a think today about the theme, which is meeting a new place. Now, obviously, books and films and drama and, all forms of storytelling are absolutely full of places and memorable settings. In a lot of stories, characters will move from place to place, and we will meet a new place with them. We talk a lot about world building in storytelling, especially fantasy authors, and the evocation of place, the creation of place is one important aspect of world building, even though world building has a lot of other facets to it as well. We can also experience place as an important character in a story. So the great cities, London, Paris, New York, Lagos, Sydney, Wellington, where I used to live, are often, evoked as places in fiction. But there are also, warships and starships, or whole other worlds and other planets that become vitally important to the story. So important and have so much meaning and motivation that they appear to be a character, not just a sort of background. Even if your character stays in one place for the entirety of a novel, they might come to see that place differently. They might meet it and the old familiarity is gone and they see some of its meanings or symbols anew. And even if that doesn't happen, a place might be familiar to your character, but it's not going to be familiar to your reader. So you will still, even if you are staying in a place that is familiar to your main characters, you'll still have to introduce that place to the reader. So what I try to do on the podcast is introduce you to ideas that your things that help you build your craft, because you'll have to do them again and again and again. And meeting a new place is certainly something that you will just have to do over and over and over. Let's think about a new place then and just have a half an hour to play with the idea of how it might appear to a character, what it might make a character feel, and how to introduce it to a reader. So we're playing and experimenting today, and we will take some of the good stuff and leave some of the awkward stuff behind. So in this writing session, you're going to need a character, and this is perfect if you have a character who's in your imagination that you've made up before or that's part of a work in progress. But you can also create someone entirely new by simply choosing a name and an age, and we'll discover a lot about their character as we write from their perspective and work out, what their world is in today's exercise, very literally. So they're going to enter a new space. And for the purposes of today, I'm going to ask that it's a place with people in it. So we might be looking at something like a market. Perhaps your character is going to a party, which could be in a private or a public space. It might be a big open space like a park or a heath or a desert or the beach or the woods. So somewhere not densely populated, but where other people may appear. Perhaps it's an inn or a pub or a cafe or whatever your kind of cultural equivalent of that would be. So we've got a person in a new place where there are some other people. And for the opening of today's writing session, I'm going to ask you to focus on the temperature in that place and the smell and the sound. And we'll work everything else out as we go. So we have a character entering a new place with some other people in it. And you're going to tell your reader all about the temperature, the smell, and the sound of this new place. And I'll be back with you in about 4 minutes. And now to get your character moving around in this space, we're going to force them up. So that might be up some stairs, up a hill, or a dune on the beach. It might be the slight incline of an old floor. It might be a single step in a room. But we're going to allow your character to move within that space and potentially to be slightly annoyed at the effort of climbing, moving themselves up. So we can have just to set up a very mild emotional reaction to this space. Get maybe this up is a little irritating. And now we're going to let that moment of emotional reaction lead us into a period of your character thinking their internal thoughts, so interiority. So your character's going to look around this space and think, do I want to be here? So we might get the first inkling that even if this space is familiar, today it feels different and awkward and off somehow. So just a moment where your character thinks, do I want to be here? And now, having given our character a moment to really think about this place, we're going to return them to the exterior, and what they can see around them. And just as we did in the warm up, going to think about everything vertical. So they can look out across this space to the edges of what they can see, even if that's only, a few feet away from them. Just think particularly about what's interrupting their eye line. How is this space created out of vertical objects? Because that's what divides space into different parts, right? Otherwise we'd all be lost in a massive desert. So we're back to visuals and visual description. And if you like, if they haven't interacted with any of the people in this space, we can have a think about that dialogue as well, because sometimes we don't want a big chunk of visuals and then a big chunk of dialogue. We want to intersperse those things. So we're going to have a think about verticals and maybe also about meeting someone in this space. And now for our last prompt. Love your character to begin sensing that they shouldn't be in this space. There's a nagging feeling that perhaps they should be somewhere else. You can make that very literal, like a forgotten appointment. You can make it a little bit more emotional. It's all about belonging and fitting in. You can make it personal. They know this space and it's time to move on from it. They're looking for something else. But we're just going to finish today's exploration of space by imagining an escape from it, working out how to leave, or at least beginning to have the idea that we may want to get out. And now, as we come to the end of that session, if this has really taken off for you, and the words are coming really easily, do hit pause and carry on for as long as you desire. And if you're going to finish with me today, we'll take 30 seconds now just to bring it to an intentional close. That could be the end of a description or a conversation. Could be scribbling down a few ideas about what's going to happen next. Perhaps you've accidentally discovered something about this character's backstory that you want to capture. Maybe it isn't this person or this place at all. Maybe it's an object in the room or a tree in the landscape or a cloud going over. Writing can be a very tangential art form. We uncover these little ideas and then we follow them to a conclusion. We're all down a rabbit hole and we don't know where we're going. And that's absolutely fine. But what we want to do at the end of any writing session is just capture some of those ideas. So it's really easy to fire up our brains next time and get going really fast. So that then brings to a conclusion today's session on meeting a new place. It's time to just pause and step back and reflect on what we've done. So, worth noting the magic of writing and storytelling, right? So, half an hour ago, this place did not exist, and you have conjured it from nothing, and it has lived in your imagination, and it now lives on the page so that it can make its way into someone else's imagination. And for me, that's the magic of why I enjoy writing so much. And some of these very basic ideas, creating a new place, when we get good at writing, and we're doing it all the time, and we have an ongoing writing artistic practice, it can be easy to step over the joy of those very basic craft things a bit too quickly and too easily. So we're going to pause and acknowledge that it's creating a new place where anything might happen. Any story might make itself known in this place. Anything could happen to your character who's standing there. I think that's really fun. An enjoyable way to while away our human hours. Um, I hope that maybe today allowed you to play and experiment with meeting a new place from a perspective. So your character had an emotional reaction to that place, they had some interior thoughts in that place. And how a place makes your character feel is one of the most important um, tasks you have to sort of communicate to your reader. Is your character comfortable or under threat? Is their sense of feeling safe misplaced and about to collapse? Then I've got tension as the reader. So um, what I tend to find as a reader is that it takes a very special kind of writing just to evoke place with no a sort of emotion or attitude. In general, I want a character surveying that place and telling me how they feel about it, and then that's what really hooks me in. I think as well, you might consider which elements of today's writing came naturally to you and which made you feel more awkward. So we asked your character to move around in that space. Maybe um, you were fine describing it from a very static point of view, but once things began to move, you got lost a bit, or maybe you were brilliant at all the interior stuff, but all me going on about verticals and spaces and visual description was not your bag. So one of the things we can do as we develop our practices to work out, okay, what did I do really well there? And what did I struggle with a bit? And maybe I want to concentrate on what I do well, or maybe I recognize that I'm going to need to be better at visual description. So I'll concentrate on that. I do always invite you as well to put a little star or underline anything that you think was really good, that amused you. If you're a comic writer, maybe you chuckled as you're writing. If you're a horror writer, maybe there's some really something more sinister in what you've written. And what that allows us to do is, as we go back through our notebooks, we are shown bits of writing that we're proud of. They jump off the page at us because we've highlighted them. And that brings you into kind of long-term ongoing dialogue with your writing notebook, where it is always giving you a bit of kind of validation and encouragement, which if you're not sharing your work can be a bit few and far between. So um, the other reason for doing that is that if you ever want to sit down and write, or are like struggling to push yourself to get to sit down and write, you can go back through your notebook and you can see ideas which amused you that you might take off in a completely different direction. So sometimes it can only take 2 or 3 words for us to create a whole new character or a whole new place. So yeah, worth reading back and reflecting on what we're doing. I hope you enjoyed that meeting a new place session. I'm going to follow it up next week with meeting a new person, another thing that we have to do all the time when we're writing. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.